You notice the way her posture shifts when you walk into a room, not away from you, but towards something she can't quite name yet. Most men your age read that shift as polite interest, maybe curiosity about status or resources. But what's actually happening in her nervous system in that moment has nothing to do with what you own or what you've accomplished. It has everything to do with a neurological assessment her body is making faster than conscious thought, and the words you choose in the next 90 seconds will either complete that assessment in your favor or shut it down entirely. The phrase that works isn't what you think it is, and the reason it works will change how you understand attraction for the rest of your life. I'm Dr. Mary Edwards, and I'm a psychosexual therapist specializing in the neuroscience of desire and the role of nervous system regulation in intimacy. I work primarily with men navigating age gap dynamics, and what I'm about to walk you through comes directly from Stephen Porges' Polyvagal theory and Emily Nagoski's research on the dual control model of arousal. First, we're going to cover the single neurological mechanism that determines whether a younger woman experiences you as magnetic or merely interesting. Then I'll give you the exact phrase structure that shifts her from social mode into something far more open. And finally, I'm going to show you the calibration signal that tells you in real time whether what you just said landed the way you intended, because the difference between effective and awkward here is about 6 inches of physical space and one visible shift in her breathing pattern. The third piece is the one that separates men who understand this from men who are still guessing. Her body is not deciding whether you're attractive, it's deciding whether you're safe. Most men think younger women are drawn to confidence or dominance or the kind of self-assurance that comes with age. Those things register, but they register as secondary data. What her nervous system is scanning for first, before arousal, before interest, before anything that looks like chemistry, is whether being close to you will require her to activate her threat detection systems or whether she can stay in ventral vagal parasympathetic mode, the neurological state where openness and receptivity are even possible. If your presence, your energy, or your words push her into sympathetic activation, her body will prioritize self-protection over connection every single time, and no amount of charm or status will override that. I had a client last year, a 52-year-old man who'd been dating women in their late 20s and early 30s for about 18 months with almost no success past a second date. He was articulate, successful, physically fit, and by his own account, he was doing everything the standard advice told him to do, demonstrating value, holding frame, projecting certainty. But what he described as confidence, the women he was meeting were experiencing as intensity. He was activating their sympathetic nervous systems within the first 10 minutes of every interaction, and once that happened, everything he said afterward was being filtered through a low-level threat response. The shift that changed everything for him wasn't learning a better opener, it was learning to recognize the difference between a woman who feels seen and a woman who feels studied, and then choosing words that reinforce the former instead of the latter. Before we go further, I want to give you the resource I built specifically for this. It's called the Presence Protocol, 7 phrases that shift her nervous system, and it walks you through the exact language patterns that signal safety, presence, and attunement without ever sounding rehearsed or therapeutic. You'll find the link in the description. Download it, print it, keep it somewhere you'll actually look at it before you go out, because the phrases in that guide are the ones my clients come back to again and again as the difference between a woman who stays engaged and a woman who politely extracts herself 20 minutes in. Now let's get into the core of how this actually works. The first shift, and this one rewires the entire dynamic before anything else begins, is moving from display language to discovery language. Display language is anything that communicates what you have, what you've done, or what you know. It's resume talk. It's the instinct to establish credibility by listing credentials, accomplishments, or experiences. And it makes perfect sense why men default to this, especially men with real achievements behind them, because display has worked in every other domain of life. But here's what's happening neurologically when you lead with display. Her brain is processing that information through the lens of social hierarchy, which activates the dorsal attention network, the part of her brain responsible for evaluating status and making comparative assessments. That network is cognitively demanding. It pulls her out of the present moment and into analysis mode. And analysis mode is the opposite of the receptive, emotionally available state where attraction and arousal actually build. Discovery language does something entirely different. Discovery language is anything that expresses genuine curiosity about her inner world. Not her job, not her hobbies, but the way she thinks, the way she notices things, the qualities of her attention that make her different from anyone else in the room. Picture this. You're standing close enough to her that you can see the small shift in her expression when something you say lands in a way she wasn't expecting. Most men in that moment will escalate. They'll move closer, they'll touch her arm, they'll try to capitalize on the opening, but what actually deepens the moment is slowing down and naming what you just noticed. Not in a way that sounds like you're narrating her experience, but in a way that shows you're paying attention at a level most people don't. Here's the phrase structure that works. Say this: I just noticed the way your whole face changed when you said that. What was happening for you right then? That question does three things simultaneously. First, it signals that you're attuned to her emotional state, which activates her ventral vagal system and begins the process of co-regulation. Second, it gives her explicit permission to go deeper into her own experience, which is the opposite of the performance pressure most men create without realizing it. And third, it positions you as someone who is interested in understanding her, not impressing her. That shift in relational positioning is what moves you out of the category of men she's assessing and into the category of men she's curious about. The calibration cue here is her eye contact. If what you just said worked, her gaze will hold steady on you for 2 to 3 seconds longer than it did before you asked the question, and you'll see a softening in the muscles around her eyes, a barely perceptible relaxation that signals her nervous system just down-regulated. If you don't see that, if her eyes move away, or if she gives you a surface-level answer and then redirects the conversation, it means one of two things. Either she's not ready to go there yet, or the way you asked the question came across as interrogation rather than invitation. If that happens, don't push. Just match her energy, stay present, and wait for the next natural opening. The second shift is understanding that arousal for her is not the presence of excitement. It's the absence of threat. This is the single most important thing Emily Nagoski's research on the dual control model teaches us, and it's the piece that almost no one in this space is willing to say out loud. Her sexual excitation system and her sexual inhibition system are operating simultaneously, and the inhibition system is more sensitive, more easily activated, and more powerful. What that means in practical terms is that anything you do that raises her cortisol, anything that makes her feel rushed, pressured, or uncertain about your intentions, will override every move you make to create attraction. You can say all the right things, create all the right moments, and still lose her entirely if your pacing signals that you're more interested in an outcome than in her experience. Here's the phrase that recalibrates pacing in real time. When you sense the conversation or the physical proximity starting to move faster than her nervous system can integrate, say this: I'm in no rush here. I just want to be exactly where we are right now. That sentence does something most men never think to do. It names the pace explicitly and then removes the pressure that comes from unspoken expectation. The moment you say that, her sexual inhibition system receives a direct signal that there is no agenda she needs to defend against. And that signal is what allows her excitation system to come online without interference. The women I work with describe this moment as the point where they stop managing the interaction and start feeling it. Watch her shoulders. If the phrase worked, you'll see them drop slightly, not a big movement, just a small release of tension she was holding without realizing it. You'll also notice a change in her breathing. It will slow down and deepen. If you don't see those shifts, it means she's still in a state of hypervigilance, and the most effective thing you can do is create more space, not less. Move slightly back, lower your voice, and give her room to come toward you instead of feeling like she needs to hold her ground. The third phrase is the one I saved for last deliberately because it operates at a level the first two never reach, and it requires something from you that has nothing to do with words. This phrase only works if the energy behind it is real, because what you're doing here is not creating attraction. You're revealing that it already exists and that you're confident enough to name it without needing her to confirm it immediately. The phrase is this: there's something about the way you move through the world that I find completely compelling, and I don't think you hear that enough. Then stop talking. Do not explain what you mean. Do not list examples. Do not ask her to respond. Just let the statement sit in the space between you and hold eye contact while she processes it. What makes this phrase neurologically powerful is that it activates her dopaminergic reward circuits, the same system involved in anticipation and desire, but it does so without creating a demand for reciprocation. You're not asking her to validate you. You're not fishing for a compliment in return. You're making an observation about her that she now has to sit with, and that observation becomes a lens through which she starts to see herself differently in your presence. The women I've worked with who've been on the receiving end of this describe it as the moment they realized the man in front of them was seeing something in them that they hadn't been aware they were showing. That realization creates a kind of intimacy that has nothing to do with physical touch and everything to do with being known. The calibration signal here is not immediate. You're looking for what happens 10 to 15 seconds after you say it. If it landed, she'll either smile in a way that looks almost involuntary, or she'll break eye contact briefly and then come back to you with a different quality of attention. Softer, more open, more curious. If neither of those things happens, if she deflects or makes a joke or changes the subject quickly, it means the statement felt too intense too soon. That's not a failure. It just means her system needs more time in the safety building phase before she's ready to receive that level of directness. Now here's the action plan I promised you. Tonight, or the next time you're in a conversation with a woman you're genuinely interested in, I want you to do this. Spend the first 10 minutes of the interaction doing nothing but listening and asking discovery questions, not interview questions, not resume questions, questions that require her to go inward and then share what she finds there. Notice when her energy shifts, when she leans in slightly, when her voice changes tone, when she gives you an answer that feels more real than the ones that came before it. When you see that shift, use the first phrase, name what you noticed, and ask her what was happening for her in that moment. Spend 3 to 5 minutes in that space. Let her talk. Don't rush to fill silence. Then, when you feel the interaction naturally deepening, introduce the second phrase about pacing. Say it clearly, mean it fully, and then watch what happens to her body. If you see the shoulder drop and the breath deepen, stay exactly where you are for another 5 minutes. Don't escalate, just be present. Finally, if the entire interaction has felt connected and mutual up to this point, use the third phrase. Say it, hold eye contact, and then let her respond in whatever way feels natural to her. This entire sequence runs 30 to 40 minutes. And the 2 checkpoints you're watching for are the eye contact extension after the first phrase and the shoulder drop after the second phrase. If you see both of those, you're building something real. If you don't, slow down, create more space, and trust that presence is always more powerful than pressure. What this kind of consistent attunement builds over time isn't just attraction, it's the kind of trust that makes a woman feel safe enough to be fully herself with you. and that safety is the foundation of everything else. Let me bring this all together. Attraction for a younger woman in the presence of an older man is not built through displays of status or assertions of confidence. It's built through nervous system co-regulation, through the consistent experience of being seen without being pressured, and through language that signals you are more interested in understanding her than in impressing her. Discovery language creates connection where display language creates distance. Pacing that prioritizes her felt safety over your desired outcome allows her arousal system to activate without interference. And directness that names what's happening between you without demanding reciprocation creates the kind of intimacy that most men never access because they're too afraid to be that honest. If you apply these principles consistently, what becomes possible is not just more successful interactions. It's a fundamental shift in how women experience you, not as someone they're deciding about, but as someone they're drawn toward without fully understanding why. Here's what I want you to do tonight. Use the first phrase in your next conversation. Ask a discovery question, notice when her energy shifts, and then name what you saw. That's it. Just that one move. Then come back and tell me what you noticed because I want to hear what happened when you stopped trying to be impressive and started being attentive. If this framework is changing how you think about connection, subscribe to this channel because everything I do here is built on the same foundation. Real neuroscience, real clinical experience, and a genuine belief that men are capable of showing up in ways that make women feel safe enough to be fully open. And here's my question for you. What's one thing a woman has said to you that made you feel truly seen? And why do you think it landed the way it did? I'll see you in the next one.